Let's move on to myth number 2. So a lot of people think that with less government, that criminals are just going to run amok and corporations are going to take advantage of everyone. Um, and a lot of folks think that the government keeps the peace and would be helpless and victims to criminals. Why is that an inaccurate assessment of having less government?
Oh, that's what's happening now under more government. That's unfortunate. That's what we're already experiencing. So, there's all these drug companies just running around, running wild. They've got government immunity. They all of their drugs have been fast tracked. People are now having to come to terms with the fact that these drugs that were pushed on, that mandated by the government, might be harming them, might have killed a lot of people. You may have heard a lot of people died of suddenly. That is
Mm-hmm.
really tragic. So that's not good. So apparently government didn't protect us from corporations, and that's been going on for a long time. Vioxx in the early 2000s also killed thousands and thousands of people, and the FDA tried to cover it up. And they tried to silence whistleblowers, and there were some mysterious deaths even surrounding that. So that's a really frightening thing. Oh, what else does government not protect us from? There are so many large corporations. Like, I don't hate oil companies, but they're one that I think everybody can understand and relate to. Like when they have a giant oil spill, sometimes in the ocean, or they do something, they take calculated risks. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons that they can take larger calculated risks than small companies is because they have government protection, because it's basically pay to play. They say, okay, so the government has instituted a fine of so many hundreds of millions of dollars if we do X, Y, and Z actions, but it's going to make us so many billions of dollars, so we can actually assume this risk. So they do it. They're never held accountable. They're not broken up. They're not, like, that's it. They just pay a fine, and government just allows it, and it'll just happen in perpetuity until government is changed effectively. Corporations and government are a terrible, terrible partnership.
Terrible partnership. And wasn't it Mussolini? The fascism is the merger of corporate and state power. Was that him?
Yes, absolutely.
So I get, like, so we know that it's big, the pockets of big corporations, funding bureaucrats that gets them off the hook in many cases. So I guess in a society with less government, what would keep us from being victimized in that society, that type of society?
Oh, well, you can certainly use private security. You can have privatized police. The difference is those people they don't have qualified immunity. They're held accountable for their actions. They're hired by the community, and then they're fired by the community if they do a bad job. It's not like it's, this childlike rudimentary understanding of anarchy where everyone runs around and it's just chaos and that there's no one in charge. I mean, it's very much rules. You have a choice. You have a choice in the matter. And let's say your community goes with a policing organization that you don't like. Well, it's much easier to up and move to a different community that has a different policing organization. We see that to a certain extent now, but a major factor is that police officers have qualified immunity everywhere you go. Everywhere you go. And part of the reason is because they have very powerful police unions, and those unions, public unions, are they're actually the bedrock of governance right now. Even our elected officials can't get around public unions. There's absolute gridlock, and it's a whole nother can of worms, but it's really unfortunate.